Hello, and welcome to the Special Needs Sibling Podcast, where we talk about what life is really like as a sibling to someone with special needs. I'm your host, Charlene, and today our guest is Caroline. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So I'll hop right in. Can you describe your family structure, kind of birth order, who has a disability, or which sibling has a disability in your family, and then any fun facts you would like to share about them?
Okay. I'm the middle child of three. I have a younger brother, and then my older sister, Buffy, had cerebral palsy, and then severe intellectual disabilities, and a seizure disorder, which they later determined was epilepsy, but didn't diagnose her until she was an adult with epilepsy, which is weird. They just kept
Oh,
calling it a seizure disorder, which never made sense to
interesting.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
but she got diagnosed with CP and the intellectual disability like kind of at the same time.
yeah, yeah, at birth.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Isn't that interesting? But never the seizure disorder.
Yeah, even though clearly you're gonna be back in the
Yeah,
hospital like a pretty decent
right.
amount of times just oh, that's huh.
Yeah, that's what brought her
Okay.
to the hospital. And then my sister is was 4 years older, and my brother was 5 years younger than me, 9 years younger than Buffy. So a
Oh,
big age,
wow.
a lot of
Yeah.
age. But she lived in a AHRC group home here in New York City in Brooklyn for the last 20 years. And then ahead of that, she was at two different United Cerebral Palsy group homes.
Mhm.
And then she was out at on the grounds of Willowbrook at 90 Eaton for several years. She moved away from home at 12, age 12 for her.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah, 16 for her, 12 for us, for
Okay.
me. So she was basically a home. We moved from one part of Brooklyn to the other, and she didn't move with us. She moved from there into,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
so that was the kind of break there between. But
Yeah.
so I haven't really known her at home for many years, most of my
Mhm.
growing up. And my brother really didn't know her at home at all because he was 6 when we moved. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting. That's such a different dynamic too. To like
mhm.
have like some memories, but then for the most part of like the bulk of your memory and what you remember is going to be her like there instead of like actually like
Yeah,
you in the same house and everything.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And
Interesting.
she was completely nonverbal as far as
Okay.
communication, but communicated beautifully with us nonverbally. I mean, you clearly knew what she wanted. And it was before all this technology. I look at it now and I'm like, oh, there's all this technology out there that would have been so wonderful
Yeah, I was
to
gonna say
have.
like back then it would have been it's so different just because like what was available and like it's expensive, but at the same time, like it's not. I feel like there weren't as there was just less options. But then if there's less options, they only kind of work a certain way, right? So if it didn't work, like didn't click with it, like it wasn't even worth it to use at all.
Right, right. They tried a bunch of things with her, but she just never stuck with. I think she's been able to. I have lots of kids in my Sibshops now who have
Mm-hmm.
cerebral palsy who are using all kinds of wonderful devices that weren't
Yeah,
available. I'm like, oh, I wish I had seen that 20 years ago.
yeah, but it's kind of cool because you get to like kind of like semi vicariously live through them a little bit,
Yeah,
just because you get to like
yeah,
watch them and how they interact with each other. Because
yeah.
the world is such a different place now in general,
It is.
anyway.
It
Like
definitely
despite
is.
that communication part of it.
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so I guess we'll hop into the. I mean, we're already talking about a variety of things, but we'll hop into like the open forum thing. If there are there any particular like topics, questions, concerns, just random thoughts that you have that you would like to share with everybody.
Well, I am very active with a group on Facebook, um, grief support, sibling support for
Mm-hmm.
those who have lost brothers and sisters with special needs. They're an amazing group. Um, and everyone in that group has lost a sibling, most of them within the last 4 or 5 years.
Oh
Um,
wow. Okay, that's more on the
they-
recent side of
yeah,
it.
several
Okay.
have lost multiple siblings. They meet once a month and they just get together and chat, and it's such a support. And I want to put that out there because I think there are siblings out there. I hate to say it, that are going to need
Yeah.
as our kids get older. But for me, initially, when my sister passed, I was okay. I'm not. I had to go through that. All right, where do I belong now? and no
Yeah.
longer sib. Do I still do, you know? So I had to find my way, and they were the ones who said, "No, you'll always be a sib. You still have things to offer out there that
Yeah.
you need to participate where you're comfortable participating." So that's the first step that I kind of took back into the sibling world, was to
Okay.
go into that group and start. I did a couple of interviews, Zoom presentations with Don Meyer, who I'm sure you know.
Oh, yes.
Right? He did a couple things on grief right after, but so many people losing family members to COVID.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot more focus on that. So yeah, Buffy lost her life in 2020 to COVID.
Okay.
So she went into the hospital and never came home.
Aw.
And it was a tough time because you couldn't go to see her. You're doing everything on Zoom. You can't
Yeah.
you can't communicate. We're trying to figure out, is she didn't know that we're here?
Oh
Is she
man.
looking into the
That's so
camera?
hard.
It
Yeah.
was hard. It was hard. It was a hard couple of months, but we got to see her before she passed. The
That's
neurologist
amazing.
called, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Come in, come in. I know, I can see that she needs to see you. You need to see her. Let's get you in."
Yeah.
So that was helpful. But I really feel now that as I connect with other sibs, that there's so much out there that we could do for, to connect those who are lost or those who are fighting. There are a lot of siblings out there who have siblings with a lot of medical needs now who just
Yeah.
need that support. And it's a field that's opening up, sadly, so much more.
Yeah.
Like,
It's interesting because I remember like because my sister she never was on medication of any sort because my parents chose to not go that route for
mhm,
her in particular. But I remember when she was in school, she had classmates that were pretty reliant
yeah,
on it.
yeah,
I remember it was, and even at that time because that was like when we were like in elementary school. And I remember even at
right,
that age, I was just like, oh, it's even I knew something was different in that respect from our family to theirs,
right,
even though I wasn't SIB and I already was exposed, right? And I was like,
right.
oh, but it's just such a different world when you have just medication in general or just
Yeah,
kind of medical needs, whatever they be. And that's like I know very little about it other than my friends who had then have their SIBs need
right.
need that and everything. But that's a different level that is I don't even understand. Like it's just so
Definitely.
different.
It's
Yeah.
it's a whole new world. But the staff at the group home was phenomenal. Absolutely
Oh,
phenomenal.
that's great.
They stayed with her 24/7,
Wow.
despite
Okay.
despite putting themselves in danger. I mean,
Yeah.
putting themselves up to, fortunately no one got sick. But
That's even
it's
more
and then
amazing at that point, especially just because you're in close proximity with other people
right,
and like that's even
yeah,
kind of its own, miraculous thing by
right,
itself.
right. It was phenomenal. But I mean, she taught us so much that about communication, about the importance of family. I mean, when we visited,
Yeah.
she took all of us in and the time that we had with her and totally focused on us and just taught us, okay, family is important. We
Aw.
have to make the time because we don't know how much time we're going to have. And she would just light up. She loved my husband and
Oh,
was
that's
just
awesome.
the rest of us would be like invisible. I love the in-laws because it's the sibling-in-law groups, and he is a sibling-in-law, and I'm like, you wouldn't know it. You would not know it because her face when she saw him. Forget everybody else. It's like
Yeah.
I'm gonna go take his hand, and I'm gonna
Oh,
deal
over
with him.
everyone else. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
or everybody else. I don't see anybody else.
that's
So
so interesting. What
she
was it
would
like?
bring.
Oh, go on.
Hmm? No, she would bring. He would bring her. He fed her like ice cream, some kind of strawberry, vanilla ice cream, like a strawberry syrup. I don't know,
Yeah.
this little container. She looked for the bag. That and Snapple iced tea were her two favorites. And he would make sure he had both of them. And
Uh,
that was it.
smart man. That's
Yeah,
a yeah.
yeah. But I mean, you hear it said in sib groups all over the place. You hear it in presentations that, we talk about spouses and you're coming into a world you don't necessarily know.
Yes.
And, it's I always say you have to pass the Buffy test. It's my way with my
Yeah.
friends. It's
Yep.
that, if she's either going to like you or not like you. And I mean, I don't do it consciously, but I think we say, okay, if you can't get along with my sib, this is an important part of my life. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a breaking point. But the first time he met her, he walked in and she walked over and took his hand.
What?
From
I was gonna ask you about that because I was
yeah,
like, oh, I wonder, like, if that, if that was an over time thing or that was an instant, like she already was like, I pick
yeah.
you. Oh, that worked out really well for you.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
worked out really well.
yeah.
And worked out well for my parents who were sitting there looking, okay, he's not going to be all right here. He passed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's true. As
But
a family consensus, you're like, okay, like sigh of
yeah.
relief. Like we don't have to like worry about it.
And it was nice for my parents because they have since passed. And I think
Okay.
putting the guardianship in place, it was an easy decision. It was you will take over her guardianship, co-guardian, and that's what we did immediately. My brother did not. He stayed as standby.
Okay.
He's in DC, so he didn't have that direct day to day
Yeah.
relationship. Um, so it wasn't that sticky situation that you then have to discuss. Okay, we're going to go with the brother-in-law instead of the brother here.
Oh, right, right, right. Yeah, because that's, yeah, I don't even want to imagine that level of paperwork and all that.
We'll
Like,
forget it. But my
yeah,
parents set it up nicely so that what we did. We had to go to court. We had to go through all that, but at
yeah,
least that was all settled, and that made it easier coming in. But yeah, he has a great relationship with her. The both of them do. I mean, she's great with her brother, but she didn't see him as often. So
okay.
it took there was that warm up period. She had to punish you. Okay, you decide to come now. I haven't seen you in 6 months. I'm gonna give you the cold shoulder
Yeah.
a little while.
Her personality sounds
Um,
so fun.
oh my
Just
God, she
like
had a
just from
great
her your description of her, I imagine her to be like the best, yeah, like the life of the
yeah,
party and everything. Like she sounds great.
beautiful smile. Loved it.
Yeah.
She rocked back and forth to whatever music. My husband introduced her to Spanish music, which she loves. He
Yeah,
introduced
that's
her
so
to like
cool.
classic rock, which my parents were like, "Wait a minute, what are you? This is all." And, she would push away whatever they were playing, because I mean, it has more of a beat. It has more.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna go that direction. But
yeah,
she loved it, so it was nice. It was nice to see them together. But
yeah.
and I think growing up and not having the access to other siblings, it became
Mm.
important to me to be able to stretch out, and that's why I went into Sibshops, because
Oh, okay.
to be able to give these kids the experience of having somebody else in the room who clearly knows what they're going through. And a lot of my
Yes.
kids now are coming in with CP. There are a lot of kids with siblings with autism, but there are also
Yes.
a lot of nonverbal kids SIBs coming in with like CP, seizure disorders. So it's great. You're sitting in a room and you're doing activities, and the first time you get a new kid, for them they introduce themselves,
Hmm.
and when they give a story, or we ask them, give it an experience, a good one, a not so good one. Tell us something that makes your experience unique.
Yeah.
And when they say, oh, my sib dropped to the floor in the middle of the street, and that really drives me. I know how that feels. I dealt with it. I know
Yeah.
I can, and their eyes just light up. Wait a minute,
Yeah,
you
I was gonna say that
understand?
must be such like a like empowering moment and like, wait, you know what I'm talking about? Like it's such a deep connection that you can't and I remember and I know like the first time, especially as a kid, when you meet someone who knows and they know exactly what you're talking about, it's so special. Like it's yeah, it's like not describable in my vocabulary, but it's so amazing when that
I mean,
happens.
I absolutely love teaching. I teach special ed, but I think my sibs and working, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
doing it 6 days a week. I mean, when I do sib shops, which I do monthly, once a month,
Mm-hmm.
uh, from October through June. So those weeks are long because it's 6 day weeks. I don't feel it until I come home Saturday night. I
Oh
get that
wow.
fill up. I need that. It's like my motivation is to be with these guys. And they give me more than I think I could ever give them. They are so connected. And
Interesting.
so, yeah, it's fantastic to watch them grow. I've had some of them start at 5 and they're now going into high school. And you're like,
Wow. That is a long time to like be consistently showing up to something and everything. Wow, that's amazing.
we're just so happy to be back in person. Doing it Zoom for 2 years was
Yeah, I was gonna
based,
ask, like that must mean you're doing it in person now,
yeah,
just due to like with the pandemic and all the craziness and everything like that.
yeah, but it's a great program, and we need to get more kids in. We're limited in what we're getting back after the pandemic. Just
Oh,
getting the
okay.
better, and yeah, um, connecting. The connection is so good. But I love that program. And Annette
Yeah.
Spolino runs it for HRC, and she is fantastic.
Yeah. No, it's yeah, cuz Sibshops, I don't I don't know if they existed or I just didn't go to any when I was growing up because that's just an exposure thing. Like I think there weren't as many as there are now, just as a general statement. That's why
Definitely.
I can't. But I know I never went to one. But I remember like when I found out that they did exist, I was like, whoa, like that's it's so specific, but it made so much sense in my head because like what I would have given to be able at a younger age to have
Mhm.
that just
Yeah.
it's you don't realize like the importance of it until you get much older. I feel because it's like
Right.
it just yeah because you don't know how valuable that is just until you get old enough to realize like oh it'd be really helpful if I had friends who understood my problems
Yeah,
like
yeah. I didn't have it growing up either. I did not.
okay
I remember. I have a vivid memory of my father taking me to the sibling day or sip shop day
okay
at age. I have no idea of the age, but I vividly remember it. I'm like, wow, look at this. This is available. And
yeah
because he was on the board of directors for HRC for so many years, I couldn't work sip shops because it's a conflict of interest. So I kind of
oh
waited for him to. I was like waiting for you to go off the board. Please go off the board. Like,
like I want to help too leave
just,
yeah
just go off. So I went. I started as a volunteer. That's the way I got around it. I'm
okay
like, okay, I'm not doing this for a salary anyway. I'm doing this because I want to
yeah
be part of this. That's not so. Annette was like, I can take you on as a volunteer. Let's just do it this way. Well, and I stayed on
yeah
that.
no yeah like volunteer and I think that part was something that it, confusing is not the word, but I think as I'm trying to process it like in real time as I'm talking to you about it confuses me a little bit. But it's kind of this thing where like, you know, growing up, you kind of like, oh, I want to be involved in disability. No, I don't. Yes, I do. No, right? It's this kind of back and forth because
Yeah,
it's like you live
roller
it. So
coaster.
like, yeah. So this roller coaster, and so, but then I feel like you kind of get to this point where when you volunteer somewhere and you actually meet kind of a more variety of people with disabilities, I feel like it's even for even for siblings it's very like it can be very life altering and I
Yeah,
don't know what it is about because and that's the part that confuses me right because it's like this thing like there's a very big push and pull of like do I want to be
hmm
involved in it all the time because it is where that the struggle of the day to day is very real and you know
yeah,
well yeah so it's just kind of it's so interesting that even exposure for us to an environment where the disabilities are different or you just meet other families or other kids or something it just changes so much even though we live it on a like day-to-day basis
right, right. I don't think you even realize the emotions or the feelings you're going through or the struggles you're going through until you connect with another sib and it's light bulbs.
yeah
Oh, yeah, they know what I'm going through. I did that or I went through that. Yeah.
yeah yeah it's so special like when you meet other sibs and you can actually like it's just yeah like the first time I ever met anyone that was a sib I think I was probably like in the fourth grade or something so two of my
Mm-hmm.
friends they each so we were all like one of two but it was a mix in terms of like brother sister older younger and stuff like that but it was so interesting because we weren't like best friends because we all went to the same school so we all had like different friends but like when we would but when we were hanging out it was different than
Right,
everybody else and for the longest time like I don't think I understood why right because you just
right.
kind of like oh it's like
Yeah.
it's just different but then I have other friends that like you connect with on other stuff but we spent we would the thing I remember is we would talk about how our siblings would eat specific foods because it was all the same
Right.
yeah
Yeah.
and it was like oh yeah
Yeah.
that's cool like and yeah and it was so like oh like my sister's not a weirdo like this is great
Yeah, exactly. There's somebody out here in this world who understands what's
yeah
going on.
yeah
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah
But,
no yeah
yeah, I think
there's
I definitely think there's a lot in common that we have out
yeah
there.
no and it's so cool how like just being connected to a variety of people I think even now at this point like within the country right just because I've been
Mhm.
able to meet
Yeah.
people to like record and everything and it's been so fascinating to meet with people who obviously like we grew up on opposite sides of the country,
Right.
right? But
Right.
even then, like there's so much shared experiences. And even though I'm like the older one and you're not, but there's still
Yeah.
camaraderie, and like there's still empathy for like very specific things that we're like, oh yeah, like that's
Yeah.
very much the same. So
You
it's
get it. Yeah.
yeah, like I don't think it will ever stop amazing me how it works, because it's just so powerful, and it's very, I can never describe it properly, which it's not my job to do that, right? It's just
Right.
it
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a hard thing to describe in like one or two small words here, right? We all
Yes.
need exactly. It's hard to put your
Yeah.
finger on exactly how to describe it. But
Yeah. So so
I
then
mean,
for Sim
we have
y-
those shared experiences, which is great.
yeah. So for the Sibshops, were you running it like, have you been running it in the same place, or have you like moved around to different like locations? I don't know how that part of it works.
I've been
Um
co-facilitating the last since we came back from the pandemic in
okay.
person, which is about a little over a year, with Annette at HRC at the headquarters in Manhattan.
Oh. Okay.
Okay. Because our numbers have been low, it's just been the two of us. But before that, before we went out on the pandemic, there were two groups, older group and a younger group. And I had the younger group
Okay.
with one or two other facilitators. And then Annette was supervisor. So she would go back and forth between the two groups.
Okay.
But I'm the only one that came back after the pandemic. So I've been co facilitating, which is a blessing for me. It's so nice that she has the confidence, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm learning so much because she has a wealth of, even though she's not a sibling, a wealth of experience and a wealth of knowledge in
Yeah.
this area that she's been kind and generous enough to share with the rest of us. And I think I learn something every time I have a chance to go in and run an
Oh, that's
activity.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
can take some of that stuff into the classroom too, which is a blessing.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because you're always teaching somebody. It's just a matter of who, like, what set of people that you're teaching
Right,
and everything.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So then, so after your sister moved out, or when she was 16 and she moved, and then you guys moved, so then like how
Mhm.
frequently did you see her between, kind of like as you were all growing up and everything like that?
That's a great question because that's a great experience.
Okay.
We literally went. My parents made sure that we went every Sunday. We go to services together. She was
Okay.
out in Staten Island. Nobody had a car. It was a Sunday production. We would go to church. We get out of church. And it was 2 hours round trip or 2.5 hours round trip. It was a trip and a half. She
Okay.
was on the other side of Staten Island, so it was the ferry across. They made it fun for us. It was the ferry across, and then either the train or the bus from there.
Yeah.
And then we went every Sunday. We would spend an hour with her. We'd turn around and come back. But every week they picked a child that would get to choose the activity after we saw Buffy. So, and they included Buffy.
Oh.
Buffy was included in that rotation. So it was, it's your week. So if it was Buffy, 9 times out of 10, we'd go bowling or we'd go to the amusement park. If it was my brother, it
Yeah.
might be something outdoors because he was always moving.
Okay.
But we or the zoo, whatever it happened to be on.
That's
But they
so
made it
fun.
fun and they made
Yeah.
the whole, it wasn't, oh, I have to go see Buffy. It was,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this. What are we going to do today? We're going to ride the ferry. That's great. You know, so I enjoyed it. I think we all enjoyed it. We look forward to those
Yeah.
visits.
That
So,
that's so special too, because it's like that's yeah, like that's such a specific situation where it not made fun would be very dire, right? Because it's just like
yeah,
it's such a long, but they it sounds like they were very intentional about like, no, like what's gonna be like a
yeah,
fun like bonding thing. You're gonna like hang out, like
yeah.
it's something to
But
look
it was
forward to.
Nina Eaton wasn't a great place for her. It was on the grounds of Wimbledon. The building was very institutional like.
Okay.
You went in through double doors, and you sat in a room, tiny little room with, nothing on the walls. And her room, everything was bolted down. I have a
It
vivid
sounds like
memory.
a terrible movie. Like those movie scenes where like someone like you kind of go in this abandoned building. It sounds like that's what you're
That's,
describing.
it felt like an institution. I would know that now with my education training,
Right.
but I didn't as a child. Nobody wanted. I mean, it was cold. It was dark. We felt
Oh,
terrible for her. They bring her out.
sounds
We were
terrible.
the highlight of her week. Coming with
Yeah.
her. So I always felt bad for her. But my parents worked very hard to get her out and moved,
Okay.
into Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
yeah. Because my husband doesn't remember going out there at all. So she was already back in Brooklyn
okay,
by the
by
time
that
he.
point in time. Yeah. I'm guessing that made it a lot easier to see her, kind of
Oh yeah,
like
yeah,
yeah, more frequently and happier and like not as yeah.
yeah. Especially once she moved into the HRC. I mean, that was their lifelong goal. My parents were both active with HRC from day one. So their goal, she was on the waiting list since she was born. It took a long time.
Oh wow.
But she got there. I mean, she was one of the first people to move into the Avenue P
Yeah.
residence.
How
And
many people does that facility like hold?
it only, the group home was only eight. Eight went
Oh.
between 6 and 8. Yeah. And she had her own room.
Oh wow. Okay.
It was, yeah. She loved it, and they were phenomenal. Absolutely
Yeah.
phenomenal. Always out in the community, always doing something, always including her because she was the more involved physically. So,
Yeah. And I think that's a whole other thing too with like group homes and like people's like it's such a mixed bag. Like I think like for everyone I've talked to, it's been kind of like everyone's kind of like there's some people who have like a good and a bad, and there's people who just have good. Like it's such an interesting kind of like what is it like it's so random. Like
yeah,
as hard as you look, like it almost doesn't matter till like you don't. I feel like from what everyone's told me, you don't know until after they've been in it
right,
what
yeah,
this situation really is. Like no matter how much
right.
you look and research and talk to people, like you don't
You
actually
don't.
know till you just they're inside, and then it's kind of like how they interact with the stuff is the thing that makes
Right.
it the good
There
and the
you go.
bad, right? With okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because UCP just never, every time we walked in, she wasn't doing anything. She was just sitting in the corner, in her chair.
Oh.
Didn't even have the television on. I'm like, there's no stimulation going on. We need, you know,
Yeah, I mean
let's do something.
that's like worse than a hospital. These hospitals, the TV's like always on for you to like watch
What's
like
going on
game
here?
shows or old TV or something.
But when you walked into the HRC, Avenue P, she was always doing something. In fact, her social schedule made it almost impossible to see her
Oh,
because
that's hilarious.
you had to fit yourself into her. Nope, can't come at that time. We're doing this. Nope, can't come at that time. Okay, but I need to see her, so let's figure this out.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny because it's yeah. I feel like my sister's schedule isn't quite at that level, but I could definitely see at some point she could be because she loves people. So
There
it's
you go.
just like she loves doing like outside activities more so than
Yeah,
indoors. Like we've kind of tried indoor stuff and they're okay, but like nothing beats like going on a walk, going to the zoo, going
yeah,
like you like leaving a place to then go to another destination. It's kind of like her like bread and
yeah,
butter.
which is great. That's fantastic. It's good for them to be out in the community, and that was the great thing about the group home. They had them out. They were constantly out. And then she was
Yeah,
in an HRC program as well, and we loved that program. She was out almost to Brighton Beach,
yeah,
and it was easy to get to Siegel Center. It was easy to get to. It was easy to deal with the meetings, the annual meetings. I had no trouble getting. It was easy for me, and they took really good care of her. She had a good one-to-one the entire time.
yeah. And that's so interesting too because like so much of like the majority of her life is not with you guys too in terms of like kind of like
Yeah,
in a home setting, right? So it's kind of like it's she like it's so fortunate that she had that you
yeah,
guys found a good place because that's really her like where she has to
yeah,
live right because I mean see you guys is important but it's such a different thing had she lived with you in your parents home would have been such
right.
like a different dynamic of a variety of
Oh yeah.
topics.
If I look back growing up, I mean, I don't know how my mother managed mother more than my father because he was working full. But
Hmm.
three children, uh, one with significant needs. My brother had ADHD.
Okay.
So to have that, the three of us with such different age gaps
Yeah.
at home, and she managed. an incredibly structured day. Everybody had activities. Everybody was,
Oh, that
how many different
kudos to your
schedules,
mom. That's a bit yeah. Man.
different, going to three different schools, waiting for a bus to pick up for Buffy. I mean, I
Wow.
look back and I'm like, wow, where did you get your energy from? She had some help. There was a
Okay.
woman a couple of doors down that took care of two other children, but plus us, two other
Oh,
families,
interesting.
and she
Okay.
was phenomenal, phenomenal. Um, so
Yeah.
we would go see her significantly.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you could yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah, so at least you have which is cool cuz like in your neighborhood you have like the support which like,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
just dependent on like where people live and like the luck of the
yeah.
draw kind of on your actual
Right.
neighbors and who they are as people
Yeah,
and like
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
yeah, I do. I give them both a lot of credit 'cause I don't know how they, especially my mom with the day in, day out. She didn't go back to work until I was in junior high. So
Oh,
it was,
okay.
she put
Yeah.
her whole self into her kids growing up, which was phenomenal because look, we're the people we are today because of my parents. My
Yeah.
father was huge. He was on the board of directors for HRC. He was past president. He did all of this advocacy.
Yeah.
What better way to teach advocacy to your children than
Than to
show them,
actually be in the advocacy.
right? So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
No, yeah.
so
That yeah, and like and he was doing it at a time like before the internet and before, everyone could kind of
yeah.
just like do all these things like that was when it really like you really had to like I feel like at that I mean
Mhm.
not that you don't put the amount of effort now, but it's just a different type of like really intentionally spending time with people and explaining kind
Yeah,
of like I feel like the communication skills at that point are just kind of in a different world than now where everyone's kind of more like let me be concise as possible or make it pretty instead of just like no like we're gonna like have like a
mhm.
more sit down conversation but that's like that's just like a times thing
Yeah,
change of the times and
yeah,
all that stuff.
yeah, yeah. Time has definitely changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're in a different world now, for sure.
I yeah which is interesting how like did well okay so the technology thing from for us growing up was kind of this like we had a TV. So then once we had like a VCR, we could buy tapes. Or my sister was like rewinding
Mhm.
shows,
Yeah,
rewatching shows, that whole
yeah,
thing, right? So then at some point when they had like I remember when the iPad came out in terms of like it was a big deal when it came out, which is one milestone. But I remember
yeah,
the next milestone was when they had applications for kids that actually were had like any type of disability where they could like actually
yeah.
like learn on them and kind of
Mhm.
interact with them and a whole different that changed a lot. But like did your sister at all like interact with any of the like newer things because I know she was older at that point but I don't know if she like ever got
Not,
exposed to that.
they tried a variety of different electronics with her. She just never latched on. I mean, we grew up, she listened to all the PBS. My mother had, she was Sesame Street, Electric Company. Electric Company
Yeah.
was anything with music. So Electric Company was more grabbing for her because it had more music to it.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. Okay.
yeah, she watched a lot of football growing up.
Oh,
Again, the movement, anything with movement on it, she would like. So I tried to like,
okay.
I would look for movies that had a lot of action, right? Because I
Oh,
would catch her,
interesting. Yeah.
because if something was too slow, she wasn't going to pay attention at all. When she would come
Okay.
home holidays.
Yes.
So we would, because my husband and I did not celebrate the holidays, we would take her so that my parents could go to their Christmas Eve service. That was our tradition every year. We would have her for the 2 or
Oh,
3
but that's
hours.
so fun. That's
Then
a
we
cool,
would,
like, annual, like,
yeah.
yeah, that's awesome.
So I was always looking for, okay, what am I going to put on tonight? Is there a
Right.
football game on? What am I going to do here for these? No. So we would pick a movie or pick something, and then, 9 times out of 10, she might not like it. So we had to have two or three backup
Backups, yeah. No, yeah, I had,
because,
yeah, that I understand. What was funny was, like, my sister had this whole, like, drawer, like, it's like a dresser drawer thing, but she would put DVDs instead of
right,
clothes. But what was hilarious is that she would only watch. like the top row of
Oh,
stuff.
funny.
Yeah, so it didn't matter that like we had like 50 of them, she would only watch the same 6. So it was
Right,
just
there you go.
you kind of
That's
really
typical.
you just hope and pray that nothing bad happens to the DVD player or the disc because it's like
Yep.
once the disc is out because that's what happened with our tapes because I like kind of I we would both watch them together, and I would kind of watch
Mhm.
more of a variety of them than she would. But the problem was her favorite ones. It's just kind of they did the thing, where the tape gets
Yep. Wore out.
overstretched, yeah, and worn out until like when you watch, it, you're like, oh, that's not what color it's supposed to be, and all that. So,
Buffy had like 9 million dancing stuffed animals.
oh,
They
oh,
danced.
like the animatronic ones where you like hit the button and they
Yeah,
move around and
the
stuff like that.
dancing chicken, the chicken dance was one.
Yeah, yeah,
The same ones over. That movie came out years ago with the penguins, dancing penguins, and
yeah.
she watched that. She loved that. So we would come to visit, and she would choose. Okay, what am I gonna? We put two or three in front of her, and you'd listen to the same song for the
Oh
hour.
no, that that has I was like that's worse. I feel like that's worse than I mean for people who are not siblings like basically you hear lots of parents like complain about like oh my kid only listens to this one like soundtrack of one movie but I don't think
Mhm.
those people realize the level of repetitiveness in homes where
No, they
they
don't.
don't understand but that's as close as I can kind of describe it for people who
Mhm.
aren't sibs but it's yeah that
Yeah.
that gets
So when we
it's
had to have that, the lovely task of having to go in the room, right?
yeah.
Well, what do you want to take? What do you want to? I said, I don't want to take anything from it, but I should have one or two of her stuffed animals
Yeah.
because that's what I associate. So let me get her family pictures out of there. That's important. Let me
Yeah.
get her a couple of her. So we chose because you couldn't go into the room because of all the COVID restrictions.
Yeah, right, right, right.
Trying to tell them what to box up. So she went in with a video camera and went around the room, which was so helpful. I'm like,
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
great. I
that's
need to be
amazing.
able to
Cause
see.
there's just stuff I'm sure there's stuff you don't even realize that she has
Yeah,
just
it's
cuz like yeah, cuz even when my sister moved like which I mean that's a different thing but like it's just interesting like when I went to see her new room I was like, "Oh, like all these things were just in different boxes in her room or like just in
Mhm.
different places or whatever." So it was kind of interesting to like see what she has now versus
Right.
before because there's stuff that is different than her original. Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting
Yeah, yeah,
transition in that way. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's like lots of fun stuff, which is cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to explore?
I mean, I think we've touched, unless you had another question or some other direction you wanted me to go in.
No,
But
I feel like that's just you and me talking. Like, yeah, which is the
there we
beauty
go.
of this is like kind
Easy.
of like we just
Right.
yeah, which is why like I always like to meet everyone like before we record,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
something that that's just one of my personal things. Like I don't know how professional people do it like in the in out
No,
there, but I
I
know
think that's
that
great. It makes it easier.
yeah, and it's cool because you can kind of like break the ice that we can now we're just having a good time because we already kind of know each other and stuff, so that
Yeah.
always makes it fun. So I guess then we will end with what are your words of encouragement for our fellow siblings out there?
I would just connection, right? Find other
Yeah.
siblings out there because there are people out there who have similar experiences who can be a source of support. Connections are so important, and just listen, support, um, but make time for yourself. I tell my young sibs that all the time. You
Yes.
have to buy out time for yourself because you're gonna put all this focus on your sibling, especially as an adult. You still need to find time for you and make those connections, but also focus on yourself because sometimes we don't remember to do that. We just put our focus everywhere
Yeah.
else. Um, but our siblings can take a lot of our time, and that's a good thing. It's a good relationship, but at the same time, we have to have that. I learned that from my parents as they bought out the time when we were seeing.
Yeah.
And I think it's so, and just constantly communicating, talking, um, build those relationships so that you
Yeah.
have this. and help the young ones. We have all these young sibs coming up. Sibshops is a great program. Just be out there and there's some way you can participate in that.
Yeah, I think even if it's in a small way, right? You just even if you volunteered for one day
Yeah,
at one or an event or something, like that's just that even that small participation, like that's so helpful for other sibs who you don't even know who are sibs, but then they can know you are, and that's
right.
it's so special.
And that family engagement. I do the same thing in the classroom. Family engagement is so important. Just reaching out and finding out who else is in that family. Right? We're not just
Yeah.
dealing with the parents. So there are other kids there. How can we connect with everybody in that family,
Yes.
not
I'm a
just
big fan of that too. I second all of that. Nice.
that's it. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Special Needs Sibling Podcast. If you're new here, please subscribe, rate, and review the show to help more siblings and friends find us. You can also support the podcast by donating on Ko-fi. That's Ko-Fi. You can check out the link in the description for more info. If you're a special needs sibling, I hope you feel encouraged and validated in your journey. If you're not a sibling but know someone who is, I hope you learned a little bit more about what their life is like. That's all for now, and until next time, this is the Special Needs Sibling Podcast.